Rob Vickers from Clever Together. A little bit about me to begin with. So I run Clever Together, started about 4 years ago. I've also got a sort of duality of passions between use of crowdsourcing to transform business and particularly within healthcare. So I've got interest in healthcare as well through Digital Life Sciences, which is a new health digital startup. And I'm also heavily involved with NHS Local, which is a local online health service here in the West Midlands. By way of background, through the last decade, I spent sort of 10 years of my life advising major brands around transformation and delivering transformation, typically in environments where technology was used as an enabler to transform those businesses. So my background is transformation, and I'll now talk about what we're doing now. So something that I didn't think I'd ever say 5 years ago, as a management consultant working in an environment with major brands, the traditional model for business consulting is dying, if not dead already. Long live the wisdom of the crowd. And what I mean by that is we're now delivering the same services that we used to provide to businesses for hundreds of thousands of pounds for less than £10,000 through the use of crowdsourcing. A bit of heritage in terms of where the business comes from and what we're trying to do. So 2001 to 2008, as I say, I was heavily involved with consultancy. Big Four and boutique consulting grew exponentially within the UK, typically delivering services to clients at average day rates of often breaching £1,000 per day. Towards the end of that time, the Clever Together team started to experiment with closed or invited crowdsourcing within businesses. So what this is the process of engaging your staff, consumers and partners on an invited basis to help you resolve your business problems. And the first time we did it was with Linde. Linde, you may not know the brand, they bought British Oxygen Company. So they're a big global brand. First time we did it was a thing called Linde Innovation Jam, which brought together Linde globally in an online environment to start resolving some complex business problems. And they had a business problem around growth in a particular area, and one guy in Australia and one guy in the UK contributed to the single idea that transformed that business. They wouldn't have been able to do it without crowdsourcing. So then you sort of fast forward to 2009, 2010. We've already heard about austerity. So in the consulting sector, what that meant was lots of consultants, interims and advisors sort of being out of work, and I was involved with that too, and kind of seeing this shift in the market from being one of actually at times when there's high growth, lots of need for advisory services and people to support, to a time when actually organisations are trying to do more for themselves. And at that time, Clever Together beat McKinsey to a major public sector strategy and transformation opportunity by delivering a bid that was at a third of the price to deliver a better outcome in half the time. Subsequently to that, we've worked with McKinsey's to help them transform the way they deliver some of their services, as you might imagine. But it was a real wake-up call for them in terms of actually there is a new way of providing engagement and advisory services to businesses. It's not about providing an engagement and advisory service. It's actually about supporting businesses to do it for themselves. Fast forward to now, the consulting sector, certainly within the UK, is now largely focused on financial services and international markets, but has sort of retrenched a little bit to being a genuine advisory service rather than a support and transformation service. And you've got organisations like ours, which are delivering now at a global scale, support to those organisations to help them do it for themselves without putting boots on the ground, and that's where the cost comes. But we're able to support people at a fraction of the cost to the traditional engagement and business transformation model because we're helping people to do it for themselves. So that's a bit of background in terms of the organisation, where we've come from, and the heritage and story around why we're doing what we're doing. The summary to that is you can do it for yourselves. It can be automated. The process of engaging people to support you to drive your business can be automated and done at a fraction of the cost. So let's look at why you would do it. So some of the obvious reasons I've spoken about are time and cost, geographical dispersion, numbers of people that you want to engage, and buy-in to deliver the change. I think buy-in is really important. I'll just give you a small-scale example of something we've done here in the UK recently that's now starting to scale up. So the Health Visitor Implementation Plan, this is a public sector piece within health. It's an area of my passion, so I've focused on it a little bit. It was a national call late last year around getting health visiting services fit for purpose in the current environment, particular interest around joining up health and social care. We worked with East Cheshire, who wanted a way to kind of use that plan as a vehicle to actually directly improve the experience provided by families, but also address low levels of staff motivation in the organisation. So they wanted to transform, they wanted to work in new ways with new partners, but they also wanted to motivate some staff. And we helped them to create a thing called Family Echo. So what Family Echo is, in reality, is an engagement programme that's enabled by a very simple piece of crowdsourcing technology. And just a word on the technologies. 4 years ago, we were working with technology providers that used to charge us 25 grand to run a campaign on the technology. Now the technology is free. The technology itself, in our world, certainly, has very little value. What has value is what you do with it, and what you put on it, and the campaigns that you run to engage people in the process of transforming organisations. So these days we use very simple technologies. We own them ourselves, but we also license other people's technologies. But the technology itself doesn't cost a lot. It's what you do with it. So in the instance of these people, the first phase invited 122 people from within the health service to contribute to a very simple process. What should we do with our service? 99 of them visited. That's pretty good. So you've got 99 people starting to get involved with the process to transform this organisation. 54 got really actively involved. To start to think about the volumes, nearly 50% of the people are actively contributing to the future direction of this organisation. And 566 contributions were made over a 3-week period. So then think about that geographically. You've got a 400 square mile area of space where there's a team of 122 people whose day job is to be in people's homes. They don't really like to go to offices because if they're in offices, they're not delivering a service to the public. But they're actively contributing on their phone or at home on their smart device to the future direction of their organisation. They've never had this opportunity before, and they're able to do it without ever attending a meeting. So let's just think about the outcomes for a minute. So what did they end up with? So as a group of people, they coalesced around 5 tactical things that they wanted to do there and then, and they've done them. Simple changes to their business that have improved their efficiency and their ability to deliver their public service. They've also, as a group of people, created 5, if you like, strategic or big themes that they want to deliver over the long term. One of those is this notion of really starting to join up health and social care and bringing the local authority much closer to the delivery of health services. And they're now starting to do that through another campaign. The whole thing has now gone regional and national. So other people have picked up with the idea, and we've got some funding and some sponsorship, and it's now starting to go nationally, particularly with a focus on health visiting services. Now, the not so obvious reasons, now I think the video, unfortunately we've not got sound output today, so I'll offer up a link at the end of today for those that want to see it. The insight from the video is what happens when you do this regionally. Several members of staff said in 20 years of being involved in this organisation, this is the first time I've ever been asked what I think. And it's the only way I've been able to offer up what I think in order to support this organisation, because I can't do it normally because my day job is being out there delivering a service to the public. So I'll fast forward past the video. Oh, bear with me. Go back to where we were. The other not so obvious reason to do crowdsourcing is this graph. Now this is something we've spent some time trying to understand in observing crowdsourcing happening in businesses. What we found is that typically in a meeting or workshop environment or somewhere like this, when you're talking to people, engaging people in the process of transformation, 20% of the people typically will contribute. And 80% of the people typically don't bother contributing in that environment. So it's the old 80-20 rule. The insight we've gained through crowdsourcing is that 50% of the best ideas that transform businesses sit over here in the silent majority. You can't get at them unless you engage people in a different way. Because people don't want to talk up, they don't want to be seen to be creating the idea in an environment where their bosses might be saying, oh, I don't like that, or that's not my idea. Whereas crowdsourcing is anonymous. You can say what you like. You don't know if you're collaborating to create an idea with the boss or with the tea lady. It doesn't matter. And what you end up with is the best ideas coming from those who typically don't contribute. It gives business huge advantage in terms of real staff engagement and motivation. Just some, if I can get the technology to work. Bear with me. So some final thoughts around the way in which businesses should be using crowdsourcing. Now this is based on some of our experiences and observations. There's three things you should be doing. One, to understand the challenges you face. So what do people within your networks want to do with your business or with your public service? And that could involve engaging customers in that process too, but it might just be internal. What should we be doing? Then defining solutions to those problems, and lastly, managing and delivering the change. All of that can take place through the simple application of online collaborative crowdsourcing tools. I think it's also worth thinking about the different types of crowds. You have those crowds that are self-selected, so it's people who volunteer. Good examples that you might know about, Starbucks is a good one. Starbucks do it with consumers. You can go along and kind of invite yourself to be part of their crowd. Change.gov in the US was another one where Barack Obama asked the public, what should we be doing? One of the interesting insights on that is that what happens when you don't support and try and challenge the crowd, if you like. And what Barack Obama found was that when he signed in on Capitol Hill the first time he was appointed as president, the number one idea on his crowdsourcing platform was the legalization of marijuana. Because he asked the public to self-select and give their idea, and a strong public, youth public predominantly, got behind it and said, let's legalize marijuana. Now with wars on two fronts and an economic crisis, that probably wasn't the most important thing the President of the US to be doing on day one, but that's what the crowd wanted him to do. Other more examples, when you get into invited crowds, and most of our work is with invited crowds, where an organisation is trying to engage its audience, its known audience, en masse. The Lindy one is in there in terms of defining solutions to problems. Lots of the things we do around health in the public sector is around understanding the challenge. It's about flushing out those things that need to be different. And then lastly, there's things where people use automated feeds. So there's a great video on YouTube about Gatorade using automated feeds from Twitter and Facebook and the like to bring together the power of their brand, and how they've transformed their brand post-crowdsourcing is a really interesting story. And that's it from me.